The Commission Files. Hello and welcome to this first ever episode of The Commission Files. I'm Will Leitch.
And I'm Kerry Greig. We're recorded and produced, mostly, here in Studio 2 at the Commission Broadcast Centre here in Dundonald, just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland.
Well, we're just delighted to be presenting this podcast together, aren't we, Kerry?
Absolutely.
It's the beginning of a regular series about Christian faith matters, profiling the stories and lives of Christians working and living in and speaking to our 21st century society.
We'll be bringing you a new episode every month or so. So far, we've had a great time meeting people, inviting them here to Studio 2, and sometimes going out to record them.
So here we are. Kerry, you're an experienced local broadcaster. Are you happy to be back behind the microphone? I'd be really worried if you weren't, by the way.
Definitely, and loving it. I'm really looking forward to the people we're going to meet and the challenges that they'll be giving us. But Will, you've spent more than 30 years at the BBC wearing lots of different hats. Journalist, reporter, producer, presenter. You've moved on this year, so how are you coping with that change?
Well, there's no denying it's a big change, but I'm coping fine. Thanks for asking. I'm actually really enjoying putting this podcast series together, so I think we'll get to it. In this first episode of the Commission Files, we'll be getting a little insight into Commission itself. Here's a taster with a little bit of drama.
He's going! Abandoned ship! Whoa! Where are you? Premiers! Jump! Before it's too late! Jump!
Bet that's got you guessing. We'll be hearing from a man who's taken on a bit of a cultural challenge surprisingly close to home.
Being in the city and looking at the city and its needs and really being convinced that there was a need for those who had done well out of society to remember the rest of society.
Let's meet him. A man who has the distinct feeling that what he's doing now is the logical and inspired result of all the work and experience he has in life.
David Moore, the Reverend David Moore, is a Presbyterian minister, and for the past year he's been settling in as what the denomination calls a minister for special work in West Belfast. And it stems from the church recognising and frankly facing up to the rather uncomfortable truth that there hadn't been a formal Presbyterian presence in that part of the city, certainly not in the form of a minister, for 30 to 40 years.
David moved to West Belfast with his wife Elaine, and they started there in September 2022. And almost immediately, unexpected things started to happen. Here's one of them. This year, they organised an exhibition about the history of one Presbyterian church, Albert Street. That exhibition ended up as part of Fela and Phobal in August this year, Ireland's biggest community arts festival, and one that always makes the news one way or another.
The exhibition certainly got a lot of interest and raised an eyebrow or two, so let's hear how it came about. And this is how we got on. David, you're very welcome to Studio 2 at Commission. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks, Will. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're a Presbyterian Church in Ireland minister in West Belfast. You've been there about a year, but until you came in 2022, how long since there'd previously been a serving PCI minister in West Belfast?
Well, it's easier to say when the last church closed, which was 1993. So I would say roughly 30 years. And before that, there weren't too many to be involved either, but certainly 30 years.
So paint a picture of me of what had been happening in the west of Belfast in the years prior to that, all through the years of the Troubles, of conflict, whatever we choose to call it, when churches were essentially closing down and people were moving.
Yeah, there were perhaps 3, 4, 5 churches in the area serving the people of West Belfast. However, the social disruption of the time meant that people felt that access to those churches and certainly the routine of church life midweek was simply impossible. So the church that I was researching for the exhibition was Albert Street. It closed in 1971. Broadway Presbyterian Church closed 1982 and Suffolk closed 1993. So it was sadly a story of decline and closure.
You've mentioned an exhibition, and we'll get to that. That happened during the West Belfast Festival in August of this year, of 2023. That's Fela and Phobal. But we'll come back to that in just a moment, because I went along to that and met some people at that. Why did PCI decide then, in the period before a year ago to say, right, it's time we should be doing something in West Belfast? Let's, making you sound like you were parachuted, and I know you weren't, but let's put a minister in. Let's put a man in.
Well, I suppose you'd have to ask them that. But from my point of view, certainly for myself and my wife, Elaine, we had a growing sense that there was a section of the city without any witness from the Presbyterian point of view. 95,000 people live in that area, and they will have all kinds of views about all kinds of things, but they certainly didn't have any chance to interact with the view of the Scriptures and of faith as we understand it. And we felt it was important, and we began to pray about it. And as we discovered, other people had been praying for it for 50 years. And I firmly believe it's simply an answer to prayer that this post that I have and this job that I'm doing came about.
You were raised in North Down, in Hollywood. You have served most of your life as a minister in the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth did that happen and then become the man who thought this job in West Belfast looks interesting to me?
Well, now, we could be here all day on this.
I'd really rather we weren't. But,
well, I came to faith at 14. I wasn't from a church-going background. And during my time at university, felt called into the ministry and felt called to come back to Ireland. Did an assistantship in East Belfast, but very clearly and definitely felt a call to the Republic, and were there for 17 years in 2 different locations. Moving back to the north in 2012, we were in a sort of fairly suburban and well-run church in East Belfast. But there was this sense growing that we were the winners in the society. We had all of these positive things around us. Should we not care for our society? And so I began to talk to our Kirk session about our concern for the city. And while I was talking to them about the concern for the concern for the city and a particular part of the city began to grow in Elaine and I's hearts. And that, I suppose that's what led us to be interested in and apply for and now take up this role.
How much preparation was there in living, for example? I know for a while you were in charges in Cavan and Monaghan,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were down in Kilkenny.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in a culture that's similar but different. There's no two ways about it. We can start getting into constitutional details. You're in the Republic of Ireland or you're in UK, but it's not anywhere near as simple as that. But you were in an Irish Presbyterian church in Ireland where people were interested in their church family, but also in other things. So GAA meant a great deal to them.
Mm-hmm.
Trophies meant a great deal to them. I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, well, when we were in Kilkenny, of course, Kilkenny is the premier team for hurling in Ireland. Other people may disagree with that, but that's
just about everybody I know.
That's how we see it.
Disagree.
And on my last Sunday, somehow someone smuggled the Liam McCarthy Cup out of whatever clubhouse it was in Kilkenny at the time and brought it to church. And so there's a picture of me on my last day surrounded by the church family holding up the Liam McCarthy Cup. So it indicates that often our understanding of church and of culture is focused in a certain way here in the north on one side or the other. But it's not exactly the same in other places. And we're able to say, well, here is a clearly gospel-focused Reformed expression of faith, but that embraces and is comfortable with its Irish cultural heritage. And that combination has been a helpful one for us in thinking about the gospel being bigger than any one community and also being able to perhaps find our way into the community where we're now serving.
In taking on a job like this, there's no two ways about it. A lot of people are impressed, a lot of people are excited, a lot of people are rubbing imaginary beards as they're thinking what it means. 1 or 2 eyebrows were raised. That's inevitable with anything that anybody undertakes. Does it make you and Elaine trailblazers, early adopters, risk takers? What does it make you?
I don't know. Some people say it makes us mad, but I think really for us, our whole life has been, and I think this is true for most people, most Christians, to say, here am I, send me. Lord, what would you have me do? And that was initially taking us south when we had no experience of that. And many people have blazed that trail before. And this was simply a further extension of that to say, well, look, let's go to another part of the city. This very same city, our own city, and do something there that we hope will be of kingdom value.
How did you feel? What was your mood? What was your overriding mood in the first couple of weeks when you started in the job? Because you've got to get up on a day one, which won't be a Monday, and start into this. Mm-hmm. So what was in your heart the first day you thought, well, we're working doing this now?
Well, a certain degree of excitement and a certain degree of anxiety, I would have to say. It was all new. The iconography of the areas in which we were going was unfamiliar and at times felt a little threatening. However, as time went by, very quickly as we began to engage with people, we saw beyond that, and we felt a genuine warmth from the people we were meeting. So it didn't take us very long before we felt comfortable in West as we have been in the East.
Anywhere you go,
yes.
How it can look as you drive up and down the street can be quite off-putting and actually give you quite the wrong impression mm-hmm. of the people you're going to be among. That's certainly true. Take me then to a meeting that you referred to in the exhibition we're going to get to in a minute, and various things you've written in your first year that almost was a seminal moment. It gave you a welcome and words and phrases that have rather stayed with you, and probably why I first noticed what you were doing.
Sure. Well, I was 2 weeks into my job. I had a blank piece of paper, and it pretty much was blank still after 2 weeks. And I was invited to an event in the former Broadway Presbyterian Church, now known as Coulterland, on the Falls Road, corner of Falls Road and Broadway. And it was part of a year-long programme that was celebrating the custodianship of the building, partly between the former congregation and the current Irish Language Cultural Centre, which is in the building now. And the culmination of that was the return of the church bell, which had been really in storage for the last 40 years. And at that, Tom Hartley, who's a former Sinn Féin Lord Mayor of Belfast, was speaking, and his 10-minute talk felt to me like a eulogy of Presbyterianism in Belfast. It was a very striking talk. And at the end of it, he said, we need Presbyterians back on the Falls Road because they're so much a part of us. And I remember sitting thinking to myself, did he really say that? Did I hear that? And he was sitting quite near me when he came back down, and I said, Tom, you and I have to chat. This is why I'm here. And from there we went, I asked him simply, tell me about your community. Is there anyone else I should speak to? And I went from one to another, to another, to another. And through that began to get a sense of what community life was like in that part of the city. But this little phrase, so much a part of us, it was something that resonated with me, and it became then the title for the exhibition that we ran in August.
Tom Hartley's very well known as a historian. In my career, I've interviewed him several times. I've walked around cemeteries with him and dared him to come to a tombstone that he didn't know the story behind. He always does. He's incredible. Balmoral Cemetery, fascinating. There's a connection with Arthur Harris, Bomber Harris of Bomber Command in there. Did one but know it? Mm-hmm. Tom can explain it to you. So he knows about such things and cares about such things. Did you get a sense that he was the one person who cared about such things, or that there were other people who felt much the way Tom felt?
I would say Tom, yes, that Balmoral Cemetery book is really well worth reading. I read it and I just devoured it. I thought it was wonderful. There are other people who are inquisitive and curious about the Presbyterian heritage of the area because they feel that particularly the Presbyterian history resonates with their experiences in many ways. They remember back to the penal laws. They remember back to the 1798 rebellion. They remember back to the protection of the Irish language in the 19th century, a large part of which was a result of interest from Presbyterians. So there's an interest there that is more than just passing interest. There is a curiosity, and so folk were interested that as a Presbyterian minister, we were back over in that part of the world.
Now, the big thing for you this summer, which you've worked through towards a lot of the first year that you've been here, is that exhibition we've referred to at the West Belfast Festival, Féile an Phobal, huge festival. Sometimes it makes the news, sometimes it didn't, but there was your exhibition about the former congregation in Albert Street as part of that. Where did that, did that tumble out of the clouds? Where did that come from?
Well, I referred back to the fact that people had been praying for 50 years. When Albert Street closed, it united with Argyle Place on the Shankle Road to become Westkirk. And many of those people in that congregation today were and are former members of Albert Street. And over those 50 years they had prayed. And one of the things they had been praying before lockdown was that a way might be made or appear for them to go back over the wall and show the love that they had for the people of that area again. And one of the ideas they had was for an exhibition. And lockdown happened, all of that closed down, and when it finished, there was this post, and very soon after I was appointed. So the idea of an exhibition was something that they had, and simply I picked it up and ran with it. And one of the things that it does is it provides a very clear and living connection between the past and the present, and we hope looking to the future. So one of the events that we had was we brought former residents and former members of the church together one afternoon during the festival, and we invited them simply to have a tea and a coffee together and share memories. And a number of them were just simply delighted to be there.
So we had a lunch in the middle of August, I think it was the 9th. Tell me where it was, and tell me how the reaction came when you saw he was going to turn up, or did turn up at the opening, and we'll hear from that in a moment.
Yeah, well, we were in the former St Comgall School building, which is actually, if you go back far enough, the old boys' model building, which is on Divis Street. What I didn't know before I went over there is that the Falls Road only starts when you get to Albert Street and Northumberland Street. Up to that point, out of the city centre, it's Divis Street past Divis Tower. And that's where the building is. It had been a wreck and a ruin for 20 years, but a community group had worked very, very hard to reimagine it and repurpose it and restore it. And it is a fabulous community resource now. And we were very pleased to be able to get it, because it triangulates, if you like, between the former halls of the church in Percy Street and the former building in Albert Street, and you can almost reach out and touch them. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but they're close, very, very close.
You could throw a stone.
You could, well, that's not an analogy I'll use in this case. So it's the ideal place for it. And we had all kinds of people there. The folk responded very well. The folk I had visited, I sent emails out and so forth, or to some of the folk that I'd been to see. It was in the Féile programme, so folk were aware of it, and a good number of people turned up who were delighted to be there, and it was great to have them.
Well, it was a fascinating opening, I don't know, would you call it ceremony or event or whatever. I was privileged to go along to it, met lots of people as David did his opening. So here's how I got on, and here's the people I met.
Here goes. A hardje, ishmisha doki o morgra, ma will lum, falcha a kurov hig, tapanishaw an fresbitcher akish. So much a part of us, and that little title and this whole exhibition itself has largely sprung from a conversation I had with Tom Hartley. I'm delighted Tom is here, the inspiration for today.
The history and the fabric and the life of the Falls contain the lives of Presbyterians. You know, and so it's Albert Street, and it's Broadway, and College Square North, and Berry Street, and all those Presbyterian congregations and meeting houses. And so what I've tried to do is highlight the fact that when you don't see a meeting house, you don't hear the congregation. So this is about not only saying, you're a part of us, you're a part of this community, you are us, but also we want to see you, and we want to see you back. And I think it's important that we continue that sense of us as being broader than just, say, one particular faith group on the Falls Road.
We're honoured today to have the current moderator of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Ireland with us as our guest, the Right Reverend Dr. Sam Mawhinney.
I am delighted to be here. The gospel is about reaching out to people and forming relationships, and this is just a welcome opportunity to serve the people of West Belfast on behalf of the Presbyterian Church. This is the beginning of something that we hope will grow in terms of relationships and serving.
There's clearly a hunger for new relationships, a hunger for friendships, there's a hunger for history and culture and understanding.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm sure the church loves that, but you're hungering surely for people who want to know more about God.
Yes, I think we believe, of course, that Jesus is the one who loves us and forgives us and wants a relationship with us. And so as we share our own lives, he is very much a part of our lives, so we want to share that as well.
So the MP for West Belfast, Paul Maskey's here at the exhibition. What even brought you in the door, Paul? It's about Presbyterians.
Well, Presbyterians are very part of us all. They're very part of West Belfast, especially the Falls Road going back over many generations. And I think that this exhibition today is absolutely fabulous. I've met David Moore on a number of occasions, and every time I meet him, he always invites you to something, which I think is very, very impressive. So the fact that the Presbyterians are having an event here in St Congol's in the heart of West Belfast during Féile Week is absolutely first class, and why would it not be here?
We're also grateful. We have some folk from Féile here. Tony is here. Is he still here? There you are. Tony, would you thank Grania and everyone else at Féile for including us in the programme this year and the publicity, both in print and online? Bumped into Tony McDonough, who's from the area, grew up here, lives here. What even brought you in the door to look at this exhibition?
Well, I work for Féile in football, so I'm here in that capacity, but other than that I have a personal interest. I'm from the Balkan Street, which is just behind where the site of where Albert Street Presbyterian Church is. So I grew up in the area. I remember the church. I remember what it was used as more of a community facility towards the end of its days before it eventually went into ruins. And I actually was there the day it was burnt to the ground. I remember standing with my uncle in Albert Street and watching the building in flames. Féile are very proud to have events like this as part of the festival. It's important for all communities to be able to feel a part of Féile and all backgrounds and everything else. So having that event as part of the festival is really important to us.
So there's quite a lot of applause in that little report, David, not least your attempt to start in Irish so that local people would show you were at least making an effort. But all seemed terribly well received. You must have been pleased with how it went.
Oh, very, very well. Very well received. Very pleased. Over the 4 days, we had an average of almost 100 people every day. And they were a variety of different people who were familiar with the West, who lived and worked there, others who had never been there, people from even further afield than that, and people who just walked in off the street, as well as those who came with a particular purpose. So we were very pleased with it. The response was almost universally positive, so it couldn't have gone better from our point of view.
You're listening to the Commission Files, and we're talking to David Moore, Presbyterian minister serving in West Belfast. Back shortly, we're going to take a quick break.
Hello, I'm Colin Flanagan. I'm head of programmes here at Commission Christian Radio in Dundonald. We own Studio 2, but we're really pleased to be hosting this podcast. Commission specialises in radio drama, Bible radio drama, and we have been doing this for nearly 50 years. Hopefully it doesn't show that much, but I think I'll stop talking now. I'll let the drama speak for itself.
Commission Christian Radio Drama, bringing the Bible to life. Stories from the New Testament.
She's going! Abandoned ship! Paul! Where are you? Presbyterians! Jump the forest through like John!
And stories from the old.
Wretched little harp twanger. Take that!
Your Majesty! That spear might have killed me.
Yes, indeed it might.
Stories about followers of Jesus.
There he hung, my friend, my healer, and no one to heal him.
And his enemies.
So, gentlemen, we must deal with this man, Jesus of Nazareth. We cannot permit him to continue to flout our law and our authority.
Commission Christian Radio Drama, bringing the Bible to life.
Isn't that something? If you'd like to hear these dramas, go to commissionradio.org. Click on Programmes, where you'll find more than 30 radio Bible dramas. Enjoy them.
We're back with the Commission Files, and Will's talking to David Moore about his new job as a Presbyterian minister in West Belfast. These days, there aren't any Presbyterian churches in West Belfast, but that's the point.
We've heard about how his exhibition went during the West Belfast Festival, Féile and Phobal, but that's over. So what next?
Well, it's not quite over in the sense that I'm very happy to bring, it's a mobile exhibition, I'm happy to bring it anywhere in West Belfast. So if anybody is listening to this and you're in West Belfast and you would like this exhibition, we will bring it to you. There's no charge and we'd be delighted to share that with you. But yes, in terms of the next stage, we have to think where we go from this. And the next stage is really the beginning of a regular Bible study. We are delighted that we've been given permission to use some premises on the Falls Road. And our aim really is to say to folk, well, look, many people have given up on religion, any religion, but they've done that perhaps without studying or thinking about or engaging with the person of Jesus directly. And he makes himself known in his word, and particularly we are looking through the Gospel of Mark. So we're just inviting anyone who wants to come, largely focused on those living in West Belfast, to come along and look at the book of Mark with us together. And if you're engaged and captivated and moved by all of that, to keep on coming and to grow deeper in your knowledge of Christ. So that's our goal. We began just recently. We're very encouraged by that beginning and look forward to more in the future.
We heard Paul Maskey saying David keeps inviting you to things. Do you take a deep breath whenever you move on from history and culture and exhibition to say, come to a Bible study?
Yes, you're never quite sure how folk are going to react to that. But I mean, Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. And what does a fisherman do? At least a fly fisherman. He throws out his rod, sees what bites, and if nothing bites, he rods back in and keeps on going. So what's the worst thing anyone can say to you? No, I'm not interested. Well, that's okay.
And you're not on your own in the job now. You have a lot of support. You have a lot of prayer support, people who care about you, but you've got people with you now, I understand.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this work began in prayer. It continues in prayer. And I'm very, very thankful for over 250 people who get our regular prayer updates. And we just feel upheld by that continually. Yes, in the work, Elaine is there with me. Elaine and I felt like a double act from the day we got married, and even before, perhaps. And she's been at the heart.
We should ask your kids probably, but that's another story.
Yes, so she has felt and acted and served alongside me all of these years. So when I talk about being in West Belfast or East Belfast or in the south, it's always Elaine and I. So Elaine is there, and a lot of her focus is relating to newcomers, the refugees and asylum seekers who live in the area, and she does some regular work with them. And we've just had appointed a community outreach worker for a period of 3 years. We hope that might be longer, but initially 3 years. And her job will be to do more of that kind of thing alongside Elaine, because there many folk have very great needs and traumas. And working with them is very labour intensive, and someone has come to do that and focus on that particularly.
And what other things would you like to develop? Are you going tech? Are you going websites? Are you going?
Well, we do have a website, yes, antionalan.com, if you want to Google that. That's TIONO fada LANN, and it means gathering or assembly. The website has no fada on the O. And so the website is up and running. That really serves as a way for folk to find out about us, gain information from us in a quite easily and accessible way. We don't intend to go anywhere larger than that in terms of social media or anything, but we have a web presence. Ultimately, our goal is that if enough people come together and want to seek and follow God together, as we have begun, so that we might perhaps see the seed of a church planted there and a Presbyterian worshipping presence on a regular basis develop there. Even if it's as small as a mustard seed, that's our goal, and then see what happens beyond that.
When I rang you up to see about whether you would like to come and be interviewed as you are now being interviewed, you couldn't come in the next night because you were going out for pizza with your Irish class. Now, you're a minister in the Presbyterian Church in Ireland. How's your Irish doing, and why actually is it important to be learning it?
Well, Elaine and I are at an Irish class, and I don't think it's inaccurate to say we are bottom and second bottom of that class, and Elaine is second bottom, so you can work out where I am. The whole point of that is to show respect for the culture of the people amongst whom we are working. In actual fact, it's not a new concept in Presbyterianism. In the 1830s, the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Ireland it put into its requirements that every minister should have a facility in Irish. Many of them were going to areas of the country where Irish was the native language, and to be able to communicate the gospel clearly in Irish was an essential. We would think exactly the same thing if you were going to France or Germany or somewhere in Africa or Asia. You would learn the local language. Now, it'll be a very, very long time before I'm able to say anything more than please and thank you. But the attempt to learn the language is an attempt to, well, for us to understand the culture, but also to show respect for that culture as well.
Because do you think of it as work that's crossing boundaries or establishing trust? Because those things are important, but they can become cliches. So how do you make them real?
Well, at times it doesn't feel like work. I have had the most wonderful year. I've loved every minute of it. But how do relationships be built? And that's really what it's about. Relationships are built on trust. And the communities in Northern Ireland have lived distrustful of one another for decades and probably much longer than that. And while one person or one group of people can't change all of that, they can begin to interact with people and make a significant difference perhaps in a small group of people. And to be able to communicate the good news that we have, we've got to be trustworthy messengers. So, yeah, I'd see building trust as an important thing in building relationships. I don't want to become part of the cliched industry that sometimes goes around some of these approaches to how communities relate to one another. I'd far rather relate to people as people and see where those relationships go.
Less about written reports, and some of those can be very good, and more about changed hearts, something like that.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously there needs to be written reports and everything, and all of those things have to be accountable and so forth. But yes, people's hearts being changed. Well, that's what the gospel is in the business of, has been for the last 2,000 years. So yeah, that's what we're in the business of.
You were written up in the Irish Times not so very long ago, and there was a joke in it. I don't know how much of it was the journalist that you met, how much of it was the sub-editors, probably a combination. But the idea was one person having asked you if you were a spy. Was that real? Was that just a journalist thinking it would be class if you'd been asked that?
No, that was actually real. I suppose I shouldn't have said that, but I did. I suppose I was trying to indicate that 99.9% of people didn't have any issue at all, and probably this fella didn't either. Maybe he was trying to be humorous when he asked it, but it did take me aback. And
you'd be a rubbish spy.
I would be absolutely rubbish as a spy. There's no doubt about it.
That's two of us. Tell everybody everything we know constantly.
That's right. Well, I suppose as a minister, you are used to speaking a lot, and you very seldom can hold back when there's something important that you want to be said. But no, as far as the spying game goes, I'm not qualified.
You've talked a lot, and I know it really matters to you, about the welcome you've received in your first year and how you've moved to West Belfast. You've moved to an area I know very well from all the tragic things happened around it in 1971, and I've done a lot about that and when I was a reporter years ago. And yet there must be times when people look at you askance and have said, what's he here for? Is he to make us Protestant? Is he to make us unionist? Has he got an agenda? People inevitably must pin an agenda on you sometimes.
Well, I'm very clear when I speak to people. I'm not here to change anybody's culture or politics. Not interested in that. And my main approach is to say that there are many, many people in this part of the city, as indeed through all the other parts of the city, who have given up on any form of religious faith. And I feel without fully understanding what is at the heart of that faith, and that is Jesus Christ. So that's what I whatever people are thinking in their minds, no one has said those words to me. I keep saying, well, this is my focus. My focus will be on Christ. I mean, I'm happy to talk about politics and culture and all of that kind of stuff. I'm interested in that kind of stuff, but it's not what I'm here for. I mean, other people can do that far more effectively than I can. The one thing I can talk about is the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, and I would love people to engage seriously with that and see what God does with that and see what God does in their lives. But I'm not forcing anything on anyone, and I'm not pulling anyone away. I was reminded the other day of someone who, say perhaps they were challenged by the statement, are you trying to convert all these people? And they said, oh, I couldn't convert anyone. It's only the Holy Spirit that does that. And that's true.
29 years when you arrived, 30 years now since the last congregation closed in West Belfast. How many people have said, where have you been?
Well, a number of people have said, we're delighted to see you back. I think everybody understands the context of the 70s, 80s and 90s. And no one, I think, would say, well, we were surprised that you left. But I think they're delighted that we're back.
When you look back on this process, the job coming up, PCI deciding they wanted someone, and I mean Presbyterian Church in Ireland, and you deciding to go for it and that happening, then the first year you've had, and then you look back through your, ministers tend to say your ministry career, I don't know what way you look at it, but all those places where you served as a minister. Does it all make sense? Does it all fit together? Can you see God's hand in this? Can you see God having a plan that you and Elaine were entirely oblivious to all that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think we could have done what we're doing now had we not been working down south and getting some understanding for a culture different from the one that we grew up in. And then being in the city and looking at the city and its needs and really being convinced that there was a need for those who had done well out of society to remember the rest of society and see the need that there were in other parts in various ways to serve there. And my former congregation have been very generous. They gave in great measure that was really half of the cost of this exhibition, for instance. So that interest and support and our own experience, yeah, we see God bringing that all together.
And when you wake up, I asked you about the first day. When you wake up now, a year on, and it's time to go and do things, a lot of the things I don't think you'd even organised, planned, thought of a year ago. But do you leap out of bed? Because you don't have as many Presbyterians are thinking, you don't have a Kirk session to deal with anymore.
No, I do leap out of bed metaphorically. I can't say that I leap
Not
out
at
of
your
bed
age,
physically,
no.
given the age I am. But yeah, I'm as excited now as when I started, and maybe more so.
David, thank you so much for coming in to see us at Commission and tell us about that. Hasn't been that bad, has it?
It's been great. Thank you, Will. You looked after me well.
David Moore talking to Will there. Our thanks to him for giving us so much of his time.
Well, you know what? David's story was just one unexpected event after another, and it's been really interesting to watch it unfold this year. What did you think, Kerry?
I thought it was very thought-provoking and very challenging. Watch this space.
Just fascinating. If you Google David Moore in West Belfast, you can see there's been more than a little mainstream media interest. See what you think about that yourself. That's it for the first episode of the Commission Files. Thanks so much for listening. If you subscribe through your podcast provider, you'll know when Kerry and I finally get around to uploading the next episode. Kerry, I feel a bit of a production meeting coming on, frankly.
Definitely. The Commission Files is produced and recorded in Studio 2 at Commission in Dundonald. You can check Commission out at commissionradio.org.
And you might like to look out for another podcast produced here. It's called Inspired to Act. It's from Thrive Ireland, presented by me and Thrive's director Diane Holt. Just search for Inspired to Act. Details at thriveIreland.org.
Thanks for listening. From me, Kerry Greig.
And from me, Will Leitch.
See you next time. Bye.
See ya.